Welcome to the Play Creators Conference. I am here with Jeremy Padawer from Jazwares, Azhelle Wade, the toy coach, and David Snow from the Fantastic Factory. Today we are going to talk about failure and how that is the key to success. So let's just get right into it. First, if I may, would each of you please very briefly introduce yourselves and how you landed in this great toy industry of ours. Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Oh, well, thank you. Hi, Leila. It's good to see you, and I'm glad to be on this panel with such an esteemed crew. Yeah, I've been in the toy business most of my life. I actually started in toys in high school when I had the opportunity to work at Only Kids in Memphis, Tennessee, which is like a toy retail plus clothing store. So I would hem clothes and spend as much time in the toy aisle as possible, and followed that throughout my entire career to Mattel, to Jax, Wicked Cool, and Jazwares.
Excellent. Excellent. Azhelle?
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here too. Thanks for having me. Can't believe I'm on this panel. Nice to see you, Leila. I've been in the toy industry for 10 years. I always knew I wanted to work with kids, and I actually ended up going to the Fashion Institute of Technology and working on becoming a children's exhibition designer. And while I was in that program, one of my teachers told me that there was a toy program at FIT, and I didn't believe that that could be a real job. I was like, no, I'm trying to, like make money and like have a life. I don't think that's gonna be viable. But he assured me, he's like, no, this is a real industry. There's a career here. So I met up with the department head at FIT, Judy Ellis, and she took a liking to me, kind of showed me the way. And after that 2-year program, I started off at Horizon Group USA, and the patents I got from that role kind of put me on this trajectory to be kind of a innovator, or someone that comes in when companies want to do something new. So yeah, that's how I started up in the toy industry. Been here ever since.
And David?
Hi guys, yeah, great to be on the panel. Hi Leila, good to see you.
Great to see
I started my time in the toy business working for Hasbro UK, so straight out uni and working in sales in Hasbro, and then went through a number of other companies, and then thought to myself, hey look, I can start my own toy company, this should be fun. And, I did, and 6 years later we're still going, and we've had many failures along the way, but some successes as well, which has been great. So perfect opportunity to talk about some of that.
Fantastic. Well, it's so great to have all of you here, and thank you for being brave and for putting yourselves out there. I can tell you that this topic that we're about to get into, I have a ton of experience with. I can't tell you how many times as a buyer I saw a product line and I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be the next best thing. And it just didn't happen. So, so Jeremy, tell us about a product launch that you thought would be a big winner and instead turned out to be not so great, or actually failed in flames.
Well, look, I'm going to take a broader approach, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that failure in the toy industry is often driven by the expectations of what that brand might do. So some of the biggest brands ever, like for instance, when Star Wars was relaunched in the 90s, the expectation was that it might do, gosh, I don't even remember what the number was. It was like 500 or 600 million. Well, it did 10% less than that. And it was not seen as a success. Shocking. I mean, so when you step back and you look at it, you go, wow, a $500 million business or $600 million business, in any way you look at it, it's not just a success, it's a phenomenon. In fact, it's an indicator of one of the greatest success stories of all time. So we all know that launch for Star Wars, when they originally brought it back, and I think it was before the new movies were in play, it was a major success. But it's all perception versus reality. And so if you allocate any amount of footage to a brand or to a launch, and you just better be certain that it's footage that's going to be populating good volume, because at the end of the day, that's how you're judged. So some of the bigger brands or some of the bigger opportunities that we've ever had, may be perceived one way versus the other in terms of looking at the total dollar volume. It's pretty fascinating, really.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The bigger the dollar volume gets, obviously, the bigger inventory problem it is if you're 10% over, right?
Yes.
And if you're 10% under, you've maybe failed customers because there wasn't enough for people to satisfy their needs. You ruined a holiday is what I've been told a number of times by underbuying something. But it is all relative to what your expectations are.
Yes, and if you're going to err one way or the other, the difference between erring 10% too little is the difference of something looking like a smash hit versus looking like something that didn't live up to its expectations if you ship 10% too much. It is outrageous, but it's real, and it's all about linear productivity. And so when I think about success and I think about failure, I think more about how successful were we on a linear productivity standpoint versus how successful were we in total dollars driven.
Yeah, good. Azhelle, what about you? I know we talked earlier about a couple of things that really turned into fantastic opportunities later.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking on it. I'm going to change it up from what we talked about a little bit.
Sure, of course.
Because this one was really it was really kind of a failure, you know. I remember it was like spring, it was spring 16. So we're working on product for spring 17. And at that time, like pom-poms were really big. I think it was the time of like the pom-pom wow blowing up, and then like Alex was doing a bunch of pom-pom items, and I was the brand manager for Totally Me, and I'm sorry, the product manager for Totally Me, as well as like the design manager for a bunch of other brands in the Toys R Us Girls World family. And my brand manager and I decided we're gonna go in on pom-poms. Like, we develop 11 items a season, but we're going to make like 3 of those pom-poms. We're going to do a high price point. We're going to mid price point. We're going to do it all because we believe in the pom-pom. And like, and I really invested so much time and energy. Like, we made this like pom-pom rug. We made these like pom-pom earrings. The buyers were in. The buyers were like, yeah, that looks good. Like, we'll order it. It looks great. And then it hit shelves, and like that rug didn't want to go anywhere. Like, that rug was, my brand manager came to me and she was like, that rug is not doing well. She's like, I don't know if it's a price point. And I mean, even the margin was so tight as it is. So when we went to like mark it down, it was just like, this was a disaster. So I remember from that experience just thinking like, you know, you can't just follow all the trends. You can't try to be like a fast follower all the time. You really got to analyze what the trends mean, where they're coming from, and like, and where they're going, you know, and like, and how the market, like why they came to the market. Because honestly, at that time, I think it would have been smarter to look at yarn crafts than to just be like, oh, pom-poms are in, like just pom-pom everything. So that's my experience.
Great. What about you, David? You've had a lot of experience with great products at larger companies, at your own company. Would love to hear about some.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I think going back to Jeremy's point, you know, it's like the expectations. So we had, at Hasbro, we bought Connects, and we relaunched that in the UK. I think the US launched, but we were specifically to the UK. We had expectations for that, and it was a brand that really, we continued with the listings and all that sort of stuff, but it just didn't hit the numbers that Hasbro wanted it to hit. So it's a perception of how much value is the brand worth. And then because it doesn't hit the numbers, the focus is taken away from the brand. And then it becomes a timing thing. So now Connects is is a brand that's doing fantastically well all over the place. And it was just maybe the timing wasn't right for Hasbro to take over a brand like that. It just didn't seem to fit at that time. So you can also, you look at, you know, what's on trend. You can look at what you want the brand to achieve, but it's also timing as well. Timing has a massive relevance to failure. I think you can relaunch things and they become a success, and it's nothing to do with the product being any different. It's just the timing for that product. And if you get the timing right and you get the product right, you can have a success far beyond where you've been sort of 10 years ago. So there's a lot of variables within any sort of success and failure, and it's a real fine line. And yeah, Connect was one of those ones that just didn't work. And then when you look at something like Furby, which was around the same sort of time around Hasbro launching, that just went sky high. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. And the sales guys were trying to work out why it's going to work and why it's not. You've got no idea. It's sort of just guess and keep bringing the numbers in. And that was, yeah, just a really weird scenario.
Did any of you ever have a line that may have been deemed success at one channel or one account and was a total flop in other retailers or other channels of trade?
Yeah, loads. I used to look after the grocery channel. So it was anything low price point, impulse price point would just fly off the shelves. You know, you're doing like 10, 12,000 units a week in the grocery stores, whereas a traditional toy retailer wouldn't be getting those numbers because it wasn't a destination. People weren't going in to buy that impulse. They wanted to go in to buy the big box. So it really did depend. I always had to get the channel, the mix right for my channel. And I think that's still the case even today.
Right. So let's talk about if you've had any recent launches. And Jeremy, congratulations. I saw Micro Machines on the shelf. Just beautiful product.
Thank you. Thank you.
So can we talk about some recent launches that were super successful, but at least in part may have been a result of having experienced a previous failure? So whether it was an experience or some kind of inspiration from that failure that brought you to the next piece that was a success.
Sure. I mean, look, for me, I think again, talking about failure broadly, some of the things that I've learned, at least in the figural business, making action figures, is that consumers like breadth of line. They like the idea of some level of collectability, and they want you to surprise them with limited editions and opportunities like that. And I've worked on brands in the past that were very collector focused, but essentially were treated like toy brands and not like collector brands. And there's a real lack, at least historically, of understanding of such the large percentage of consumers that traverse the action figure aisle, where the intended recipient is actually 13 plus. So brands that we launch today that are that have multi-generational appeal and have collectors and kids, we tend to, I would say, over-deliver in terms of breadth of line. So something like Micro Machines, for instance, we're launching with over 100 vehicles, and we're going to refresh that over the course of the season. Something like, AEW, we'll have a new wave at retail every other month. Halo, Roblox, Fortnite, we just over-deliver in terms of breadth, because at the end of the day, you're not just making toys, you're making collectibles, you're making cherished items that will be, something that endures. And I would say that the concept of the target consumer has changed so dramatically in the last 20 years, because 20 years ago, they were viewed as nerds or fanboys or fangirls, and I fell into that category myself. Whereas today it's mainstream. Comic-Con and all those other things have made this like, there is no such thing. I mean, there's no bucket for that anymore, because it is considered almost like the expectation. So it just depends on, without continuing here on my dialogue, it just absolutely comes down to, I'd say that the biggest success that we've found lately is treating brands exactly as they are, collector versus kid.
That's great. Azhelle, how about you?
Yeah, so right before the Toy Coach, I was working at Creative Kids as the VP of Brand and Product. So the last product I launched that was really successful was Craft Vibes Only, and it was this craft line that went into Target, and it did really, really well. Like it doubled the expectations that they thought as far as sell-through. And I think what helped a lot in my experience, not so much with the pom-pom story, but just when buyers come to you and they tell you, like, we have this space, we have this open space on shelf for product. understanding that their initial ask is just like supposed to be your inspiration, and you're supposed to take it like, you know, the next level. So at that time we were filling like a tie-dye end cap, but I knew from past experiences, like just coming with the basic pieces wasn't going to float anybody's boat, and that wasn't going to help us get placed. And even if we got placed due to relationships, that wouldn't help sell through. So I made a point to make sure that I was coming up with like tie-dye kits that incorporated some other form of like craft play or activity play. So we ended up having this really fun tie-dye festival blanket that was like a not a quilt meets tie-dye. So there's like 2 levels of play, but then there's also this tie into like festival play and fashion and like, you know, outdoor things. And then also we did like a tie-dye little mini pillowcases. So there was a meeting of like that marble texture popularity, and then like a new thing to apply tie-dye to, and tying it into room decor. So I think I've just learned from some of my past failures that you always want to make sure you're taking it the next step. You know, you're taking it to the next level. Maybe you're combining 2 forms of play to make your product really unique and different, especially in the space of crafts, because crafts are so simple. You're just like sourcing, you know, existing material. So you've got to come up with a really unique way to package like an activity together.
That's great. That's really great. And David, how about you? You've had some really nice on-trend things launch recently.
Yeah. But going back when we started the Fantastic Factory making board games, these guys are lucky because they've got toys and you can do loads of great things with toys. In box games, you can play a box, right? That's it. All the innovation is hidden in the box. There's no, you get that shelf display in a Walmart, Target, wherever. It's all the same. It's just boxes and they all look the same. There's a different animal on the front or whatever. So when we started the company, we were always just like, we're trying to make some games here. We've got some good ideas, but they're all in a square box. So, and everybody wanted to buy, we tried to sell concepts, but actually people wanted to see prototypes and they wanted to see manufactured products. So we thought, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to change everything, because we got some small wins, but we wanted some bigger wins. So we decided to change our whole ethos of the company, go into manufacture, but change what a box board game looks like. So from going from a square box, we did stuff like this. So it looks like a t-shirt. Sorry, shameless plug, guys. Sorry about this.
I like it.
Yeah,
It's a great game.
We wanted to do stuff that was exciting for people to pick up off the shelf. You know, it's not just a square box. When you're doing toys, you've got the trimies, the craft. You can feel the packaging is all very different. So we just tried. The failure of not selling square boxes led us to doing stuff that was very different. And our biggest success to date has been Stupid Deaths, which is the tombstone box. Just a really simple, it's an innovation, but it's not an innovation like a Tesla car or something like that. It's just shaping the box like a tombstone. And it made a massive difference to how people perceive the product on shelf. So those, without going through the failure, you wouldn't be able to come up with the new ideas. So all of our boxes have a different shape or a different style to make them stand out on shelf. Because a lot of people still make that purchase at the shelf. They're drawn in by the adverts, but all of the purchase decisions are still made in the store with what they see. You know, they can be taken away by different designs and different ideas and what looks great and cool on shelf. So yeah, it really helped us the failure really helped us to focus on what we should be doing going forward.
Excellent. And, you know, this is something you'll all want to talk about, because we're going to ask you about your successes. And you can learn as much from those as you can from your failures, and, you know, what to repeat, what to take a different direction, but kind of keep in the same lane. Can you give us an example of a recent launch that was a great big success and what you took away from it to feed your future business?
So let's see. A great example of something that is a success that is, you know, look, it's an interesting time of year because we're having this discussion on August, 3rd today?
Yep.
And this is the week that mods set. So the toy industry is interesting in that you're only as successful as your last mod set. And the last mod set feels like it was an eternity ago because we've had COVID in between. So I honestly don't remember if I've had any successes or failures in the entire history of my career right now, because I'm so focused on what's happening this week. But I'm being a little tongue in cheek. I'd say that, right now, in keeping focused on what's happening right now, I'm really excited about micro machines. I really am excited about what I'm seeing and the use of, like I said, sort of the understanding that some of these brands are a handoff between parent and child, an experience that a parent had with a brand, leveraging those experience points, communicating, promoting, and doing so to kind of both the adult and the child. That's been an interesting takeaway. And what we're seeing right off the bat is that Micro Machines is selling even prior to there being a real marketing effort, which is fascinating, which basically means that the brand, even though there's been very little marketing for the last 15 years, resonates. So we're watching it very, very closely. And what I would say is, it's amazing what the strength of a brand, and it's amazing what well-positioned product in and of itself does. And then you layer on the right marketing to the right people, and that's just something that's in process right now. And in terms of other success, gosh, we recently made the acquisition of a company called Kelly Toy, and they make Squishmallows.
Oh, yeah.
And 50 million
They're the
Squishmallows.
best.
Amazing, right?
Brilliant.
Squishmallows has sold 50 million units without significant marketing, and with really kind of embracing, I would say, more commoditized characters like cat, dog, mouse, whatever. It's the form factor, it's the look and feel, it's the tone and manner, it's the packaging. And I guess what I'm saying right now to you is that, marketing and the big promotional marketing dollars is often more of an excuse than it is the reality of what makes something successful at retail. Often it's the look and feel. And I think that it's the POP, as you just mentioned, in terms of having a square box versus having like the shape of a shirt, or something as straightforward as that really sets the tone. I just remember early in my career being told that, 80% of the purchase is made at retail. And I do believe that there's a lot of truth to that. Right now it's COVID, so maybe it's less today. But I guess, one big takeaway for me, to sum up what I'm saying, is that marketing is important. The marketing expenditure is important, but there's so many other things that go into something being successful. And I'm just very excited to see brands that are working for us even before we spend that initial dollar in marketing.
And sometimes the challenge is actually convincing the retailer that purchase is made in their store. So I think if you look at the game aisle has evolved a lot. Now, if you look over at the puzzle aisle, they're merchandised like books, and you're just looking at a tiny picture on the spine. And imagine what that business would look like if there was more emphasis on presentation and less on efficiency. There's a reason why they're merchandised like books, but it's boring. And I think, a lot more product would pop off the shelves if that were changed.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Yeah, the key is engaging people at retail.
Right.
Obviously, at the moment, it's difficult. But yeah,
Right.
if you go back a few years, it's the excitement when the kid goes in store and sees all these great things on shelf, that you can really see that their eyes are drawn to different things, and the mum will then be guided by the kid at what they're picking up. And if it's exciting to pick up the product, that's when decisions are made. And it might not be the toy that they actually wanted to buy in the first place. So it's really critical to get that right. So puzzles is, it's how to innovate in puzzles. It's really difficult, but there should be a way of doing it, for sure.
Absolutely. Azhelle, do you have a success that you want to talk about that led you to additional successes based on your learnings?
Right. Well, I mean, I feel the same way. Like, I don't know if these things will be successful because they haven't hit the shelves yet. But I believe, I've left creative kids, so I won't know until, you know, hopefully they get reported about in the news and I say, oh, my children did so well once I left them. But the last two big items that we presented at New York Toy Fair, I'm so excited about, and I don't want to say too much because I don't, you know, but I'm so excited about them, and I know buyers received them really well. People were excited when they came and saw them. And what that taught me was just the importance. I mean, I knew it, but I guess it really solidified the importance of collaboration, and not necessarily like we have to sit down every like Wednesday and have an hour brainstorm where we talk about ideas, but just literally a 5-minute conversation where we're saying, I'm thinking about doing this with this item because you know, the retro theme is very popular. And then the other person says, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And they give what they imagine it will be at the end. And that's usually so different from what you're imagining, that is how we came to the ideas that were the most successful at Toy Fair. Like really one of my favorite items, I can't wait to buy like so many of them when it comes out. But it was a 5-minute conversation between my boss and I where I was like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing it like this. And he was like, that's a great idea, but what if you put it in this shape box? And I was like, that is amazing. And then took it and evolved it. And then it had like a try me feature. And like now it's everyone's like favorite, like, oh, just wait till you see it. It's amazing. It's very innovative packaging for the craft space. And people at shows say that it just elevates it to a whole new level. You know, it makes crafts fun again before you even get it home, right? So I just think collaboration, like those quick conversations, like not working in a vacuum, that is key to success.
That's great. So
definitely.
Mojo, as you know, is very intent on bringing the design community and the toy community together and educating existing and up and coming designers. And I think often launching products and pitching ideas for any side of any party in the industry can feel kind of like a shot in the dark. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to what gets picked up or what becomes iconic and something that doesn't fill its potential. So what advice could you offer to designers and inventors about how to give their concepts the best chance of success? Is that maybe in the attitude that they use when they pitch? Could it be something more specific to today's market? But if you were talking to an inventor today who had an idea that they wanted to pitch to your company, or if you were talking to a young marketer who wanted to pitch a product to a retailer, what's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
Well, yeah, look, I would say know your audience. I mean, first and foremost, you know, if you're in a situation where you're an inventor and you are pitching a toy company, just know that not all toy companies are the same. And that probably the best case scenario for you is to at least have a good positioning as to what your product is and who it's for. Take a position. Don't just come in with here's an item. I think that some of the more successful inventors communicate what their item is and communicate what the unique point of positioning is for it and why it has utility or feature or function. And even the best inventors out there do a little bit more work to say, here are the analogous brands that have worked in the past and why in this particular category. So if you're coming with a girls' activity item, for instance, Blinger is something we brought to the marketplace and was quite successful with it in the last couple of years. Coming and saying this is a multi-billion-dollar category, here's who we're going up against, and can really open the eyes of a marketer that you're presenting to. And just to be clear, when I say not all toy companies are equal, you might go to one of the largest toy companies in the world, but ironically be dealing with one of the most junior people you could ever step in front of. And they need a lot of that to take it to their colleagues. They need, the more you can feed them, the better. You could go to one of the smaller toy companies in the world and talk to the operator. And that person may need way less education. All very ironic. Now, when you're a marketer and going to retail, it's a different stakeholder. And that retailer, I would say, generally is very educated on the category that you're selling to. So the key there is not to blow smoke. You know, if you're going to come with data, make it real data. If you've got a positioning or a point of view, make sure that it's very much legitimized, because no one's going to see through that better than Leila sitting there and judging you.
Judging you.
Yeah.
I mean, like I would say, like, there were times where we would go to Leila. We'd say, look, here's multiple ideas that we have, just sort of like, what do you think? Like, and she's like, honestly, if you ever bring me B, I'm never going to take it. And I'm not talking about a license. I'm just talking about like a general idea. So there's also ways to pre-vet things with buyers who ultimately are looking out for their retailer, or ultimately looking out for the place that they're buying for, because they're making their lives more efficient by being available. Anyway, so Leila did a great job in that regard for sure.
And I think sometimes, you can have your head in all of your POS reports and NPD and where's my market share and this and that. But then sometimes you just got to take a chance on something and say, did this amuse me? If it amused you, chances are it's going to amuse somebody else. And if it really sticks out in the category, there was an inspiration there for that inventor, right? And then therefore there was an inspiration there for the toy company. Sometimes you just have to go not necessarily against the numbers, but with your own gut.
Mm-hmm.
And say, let's make a market here instead of fitting something into a market that already exists.
Yeah, I was going to say that in terms of Jeremy saying, like, do your research on the company. Sometimes the companies don't know what they want. Even from big and small, they have no idea what they want until you show them. And we've been in many situations. I mean, we do very stupid games and we do very formulaic, proper games, kids action, whatever, family games. But we always put a bit of a curveball in, because we've researched it, we've looked at it, we think it's a trend coming, and the partner we're working with or showing to might not know that's up and coming, and might see the opportunities. So I think sometimes you also got to come with something new and something unexpected to a company that has a clear guide as to where it's going, because you never know. And we've sold a lot of product to people who didn't know they wanted the product in the first place, and it's been a success.
Right.
So
exactly.
Never give, the basic premise is never give up and just keep showing. And sometimes you can show the same thing over and over again, and it comes back to timing as well. I can show things 3 years ago, and 3 years later we show again, and they're perfect for the marketplace at this time. There's a lot of that happens to us. Maybe we're just forward thinking, or too forward thinking in terms of what we do, or too stupid and just think, let's just keep presenting. But I would say, yeah, timing's a key element, but also be passionate about what you've got, and believe in what you've got as well. Believe in it 100%, 200%, because if you believe in it, someone else can always find something in it. Even if it's not the finished article for them, they might embellish in collaboration. As I said, it always works. You can always work with people and embellish your idea. It doesn't have to be cut and dried, I think.
Yeah. I think you also want to tell inventors just to be prepared with their different pitch styles, because depending on who they're pitching the idea to, they might want a PowerPoint, they might want a 30-second sizzle video or 2-minute sizzle video, or you might have the chance after COVID to talk to someone in person or even on a virtual Zoom conversation. So you just want to be ready for every single scenario. And because a lot of times in my experience, the buyer says, hey, we're interested in seeing something in this category from you for $20. And you want to respond in 24 hours. You don't want to have them waiting and then somebody else slides in and fills that opportunity before you do. So just be ready.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, looking into the future and understanding that this is a relatively small industry, and although it's friendly, it can also be super competitive. That said, everybody wants to succeed, and oftentimes failures are kind of swept under the rug as bad memories. Like, I'm done with that, let's move on to the next thing. Do you think that the industry as a whole would be healthier if more air was given to stories about failures? And I mean true failures, not that you missed 10% of your forecast, but something that just flopped, and everybody believed in it except the customer. And if you do believe that the industry would be better off by giving more air to stories like that, how would you make that happen?
Well,
I think,
go ahead.
sorry, Jeremy.
Please,
Carry on.
please.
It's a heavy question.
Well, I'm up for starting the really crap toy company, and we just sell failed product. How about that? We'd all take a share in that, right? That should be good.
Closeouts
never
are
know.
us.
We just kickstart. Yeah, we just
Closeouts are us.
kickstart it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I wouldn't do though is I wouldn't want it to be an open forum of talking about failure, because I feel like that could turn into just a big,
Like this?
negative party. Yeah. Oh yeah. Just no. I mean, I wouldn't want it to be like everybody. We're gonna meet every Wednesday to talk about our failures.
No,
You know what I mean? But
more like
I
kind of
think
like business school case studies, for example.
Yeah. Well, I think what would be great is if at the end of a season, you analyze what didn't do well that you thought would do well with your team. And like you all get together and literally have meetings about, this is a complete failure. Let's analyze why, and let's see how we can learn from this and apply those learnings or change the way we approach this, or even just conceptualize what could have made this not a failure, if anything. I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn if we approached it that way. And you might actually come up with new ideas for the next season if you did that within your own toy company.
Yeah. No, I think there's a couple things at play here. I think first, the state of our category, it's a very mature category in terms of where it is in its evolution. And what I mean by that is the growth on an annualized basis globally is not in the double digits.
Like that,
So it fosters a lot of competition. And where there's competition, people tend to hold things closer to their vest. And essentially, I had the opportunity last year, I think at some point prior to COVID, again, everything runs together. I went to lunch with the owner of a rather large mobile games company. And I was really amazed at one of the things that he said. He communicated to me that sometimes he gets together with other owners of other large mobile game companies, and they brainstorm together and they share ideas. And I said, well, it strikes me that that's probably the case because you guys are all growing at 80% annualized. And when you have that kind of growth and you have, women and men that are contributing and benefiting from a situation where you have that kind of growth, you have a lot more collaborative cross-company collaboration. If the toy industry is in a single-digit growth or stasis or anything to that effect, which it has been for a very, very long time, you tend to find collaboration a little bit more difficult to come by. The second component to this, and for me, it's the reason why I sort of danced around failure a little bit more than I otherwise should, is that for me, a lot of what we do is licensing. So it's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about someone else's intellectual property in light of failure. It's a lot easier to talk about it in light of success. But if it's your own intellectual property, it's significantly easier because, frankly speaking, there's no one that is holding a hammer around the corner. And there's no one that you want to disappoint, ultimately. But that's it. I think those are the two elements that make failure very difficult to discuss in this industry specifically.
Yeah. I think nobody comes into the showroom to hear about what's failed for you last year. That's not the conversation that anyone wants to start with. It's always what's new. It's not let's look at that. And it always comes back to what you said earlier, Jeremy, in terms of what's the expectation for the product. If one of our partners may have had a really good year in, say, Denmark, another partner had a terrible year in Spain, it's very localized to each individual, and we don't know what's going to work in each individual market to what extent. We only think this might work in your market, hence we're showing you the product. So yeah, it's very difficult to say, but we're always open to say, no, that this product has worked here and here, but we haven't seen it work in a market similar to yours. So this is a product that I wouldn't suggest that you take because you don't want to foist a failure on somebody else or a potential failure. So we're always very open, and something, you can't launch a load of products and then hope everything works. Just something always falls down. It's just the nature of the product. For not trying to make it a success, it just falls down because, well, thousands of reasons. So it is difficult to discuss failure, but we're always open and honest to say, this hasn't been as good as we'd hoped, or didn't work for us last year. And then it's up to the person to either take a punt on the product or ignore it completely. Some people have an ego and they like to try and buck the trend, as it were. And so we accept that, but we're always open in terms of what has and what hasn't worked. But it's not an easy conversation. And also with our partners, they don't want to tell us that product has failed because they don't want to be associated with failures as well. So, but we'd just rather everyone be open and honest about the stuff and say, this hasn't hit expectations, so we're going to drop it, or we're not going to take it forward in the way we thought we would. And I think that's just having a great partnership and a great relationship.
I think that's just good business to say, look, it didn't work in this market for these reasons. Yeah. It might work in yours if you believe that the markets are not similar, or there's something else about it that speaks to you.
Yeah.
But that's not been our experience.
Yeah, it's always, the conversation is always what's new. It's almost like the previous year of any year in toys has always been, yeah, that was last year. What's new? That's everybody must say, well, they come onto the show, they come into your showroom and say, what have you got that's new? It's not, how do we make this better? Unless it's a super success, they want more. It tends to be very much what's new, what's next. Mm-hmm. Whereas sometimes you need to sit back and go, oh, this is going okay. How do we make this okay, really good? Can we invest more time? Can we change the product up? I don't know. I think there's a lot more on what's new rather than how do we improve what we've got. That's sort of the feeling for us.
True.
Well, I cannot thank each of you enough for spending the time today and for being open about your experiences and lending your experiences and expertise to up and coming designers and the community. So thank you. We'll look forward to seeing this in early September, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good luck with the season. Good luck with mod sets.
Thank you very much. It's great seeing you guys.
Nice
guys.
seeing you.